You need to talk into the microphone and pretty direct in order to be heard, or at least that's what I've been told. We'll kind of see how it works out, but we do want to hear. I'm John Carlin, and I'm the chairman of the National Commission on Industrialized Farm Animal Production. We are pleased to be here in North Carolina, in Durham today, and have the opportunity to hear from a long list of folks who have indicated a desire to make a statement. And I would say to you, we are anxious to hear, but because of the huge interest, we're going to adjust things slightly. And I would hope the presenters would be listening very closely. We're going to go, in order to accommodate the realities, we're going to go from 5 minutes to 4. Now, what I want you to cut out is you don't need to say anything like, welcome to North Carolina. You don't need to say you're pleased for us to be here. And you don't need to take any cheap shots at us. Get to the point you want to make immediately. Because we do want to in particular hear the substantive points you want to make. And if a particular point has already been made 17 times, maybe you ought to come up with a new one or shorten your point, because in order for us to get done at a reasonable hour, we're going to have to move in a rapid fashion. So we will go on a 4-minute basis. I have a timer. You will be warned when there's a minute of your 4 minutes remaining, and when the time is up, the time is up. We apologize for having to be that formal, that distinct, but we aren't going to give everybody a chance unless we follow that. We will not ask questions today, because that can just go on, and we don't have time. What I've asked and discussed with the commissioners, it is their responsibility to take notes and to write down for the staff to follow up on any questions we really want to ask. In terms of, I mean, you've triggered a new idea or raised a new issue. If we want or need more information, we will follow up with you. We take seriously what you're presenting, and we'll want the opportunity to ask questions. We won't take time to do it today. The other thing is we will extend beyond the 2 hours, assuming that will be necessary to accommodate everyone on a 4-minute schedule. But at 6 o'clock, a significant number of the commissioners will leave because we had other things scheduled and they need to be accommodated. But myself and members of the staff, as well as 3 other commissioners, will stay beyond 6 o'clock to continue to hear your testimony, the points you want to hear. We will be going in the order in which you asked for the opportunity. So in essence, we're trying to accommodate those who jumped right in and wanted, and those who, there's a number who came on actually after the deadline. If at all possible, we'll allow you to be heard as well. But we will focus initially on those who did submit their interest and did get in line. It's my understanding that the presenters do have a list and are ready to proceed so that we can call up. I am not doing
a full-time business within the Extension Service. Furthermore, each farm in the state is inspected by DWQ 2 times each year to ensure that no swine manure is discharged from the farm, that manure is applied to crops according to the approved agronomic plan. Another program that we deliver continuously is pork quality assurance. This is designed as a voluntary program based on HACCP principles to decrease residue and decrease food safety hazards and increase the awareness of these problems amongst farmers. This program has recently been expanded to include the assessment of animal well-being. And those areas include record keeping, caretaker training, animal observation, animal handling, facility design, temperature control, space requirements, and those types of areas. We certify these individual farmers in pork quality assurance as well through their attendance in the training programs, covering those good production practices in depth. And in June, we'll start assessing those farms as well to assure that they're providing proper care and well-being of the animals on the farm and assign those sites a site status. The pork quality assurance in this state is a requirement for the marketing of hogs because the packing plants in this state have it as part of the USDA process verified program that everyone marketing to them is a PQA producer. A similar voluntary program that is a marketing requirement through this USDA process verification program is trucker quality assurance. This program trains all the transport drivers on animal handling, loading, and transportation, then verifies their knowledge through an examination. And finally, in cooperation with National Pork Industry Associations, USDA, and other universities, we're developing the Pork Information Gateway as a tool for use by producers and their advisors as a repository of all the best scientifically available information to use in making their decisions. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. I understand Steve Roach is not with us, so we go directly to Terry Spence. And I would ask again that if you're in line, get a little closer. We've got empty seats up here, so if you're next, come up to one of the empty seats. Terry, you're on.
Make sure you talk right into the mic.
Okay, thank you very much. I do appreciate being here. I am from Missouri, so I wanted to say I was proud to be here in North Carolina. I'm a farmer in Missouri, in Putnam County, in the northern tier of Missouri. And the reason I'm here in North Carolina today is because I live next to, I'm an independent family farmer, but I live next to an 80,000 head confinement feeding operation. And I and my family and my community knows the reality of what it is by living by 80,000 head, from the water contamination to the air pollution and stuff that takes place on a daily and routine basis. You know, I'm here today because, you know, there is a lot of ills about this type of systems. But the health is really a critical issue, I think, on what we're breathing in these communities where these facilities are located. There's enough research, enough documentation out there to more than prove that we've got an issue here with these type of operations. And just trying to cut things short, I will present some of my testimony for comment. But, you know, I think what we really have to look at is, you know, we're really the pioneers of, like the settlers in the early days. Independent family farmers are trying to recapture, you know, and stake out a plot in agriculture as they did many, many years ago. But as it is today, we're not combating grizzly bears and wolves like the early settlers and pioneers. We're battling the predators like the ag commodity groups that are dominating our politicians and a lot of our universities. And this is what we're confronting against. I think when you take a long look at, you know, our food production and the way it's produced today, the health ramifications, the health effects that are coming from these, I think we really need to take a really hard look at it. I was looking at two of the top two producers in the United States, their third quarter reports, which they put out quarterly about their production. One of them was Smithfield Foods, and one of them was Premium Standard Farms, the second largest, which is the one that operates where I live. In their prospectus, they are stating, you know, their profits are down. Premium Standard was down 72% because of higher feed costs, but the main issue was they've got porcine circle virus in their herd. I look at Smithfield Foods operations and their quarterly report, and their profits are down also because of the same disease. So I would recommend that each one of you commissioners Google into porcine circle virus. It's a form of wasting disease that is global in herd swine health. And look at the ramifications, and, you know, I hope that sooner or later I've talked with Johns Hopkins University a little bit that we can get some research going on this, because these animals can die right up to the day that they go across the slaughter line. So what does this mean when they have jaundice and other symptoms in their system and are still going into our food chain? So I do appreciate being here. This is reality. This is real. I've lived by this operation line for 12 years. I've been in 12 years of court battles over this situation. We're looking at technologies, but so far it appears that industry has been lenient on doing anything that's going to cost them anything of their way of doing business. So, you know, this is not something that should be a burden of the taxpayer or a state to subsidize the wrongdoings of this type of animal production. There's independent farmers just like me all across this country that can fulfill the need of our food chain. The discussion about, you know, that it's an ever-growing feeding world and we have to go this way, this is wrong. It's totally wrong. Independent farmers can produce enough food in this world and globally and do it more feasibly and economically than what industry is doing if you take the subsidies and all the support away for this type of a system. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And if you have a longer testimony, please leave it with us. Mr. Dove? Mr. Richard Dove.
Thank you, sir. My name is Rick Dove. I represent the Waterkeeper Alliance and the Waterkeeper programs throughout the United States. It's a pleasure to be here today. I retired from the Marine Corps about 1987 after 25 years and took up a lifelong dream of becoming a commercial fisherman. And I did that for a while in North Carolina until the fish went belly up. We lost $1 billion in 1991 with sores all over their bodies. And then I got sick, my son got sick, the market crashed, and we got out of commercial fishing. I didn't know what happened back then, but I knew I was angry about it. And then shortly after that, the Neuse River Foundation advertised for a river keeper on the Neuse River, and that's been my passion ever since. I'm not the river keeper anymore. I was for 7 years. But during those 7 years, I probably spent as much as 1,000 hours in the air, flying over hog farms on eastern North Carolina, taking some 40,000 photographs and hours of digital video, which clearly show that this industry has been polluting the waterways of North Carolina in ways that have injured the environment and the community, in ways that are almost unbelievable unless you see that video. I brought a copy of the video for you. I'll leave it with you along with a number of other documents. But you know, as I look at this industry and as I look at you all here, and thank you for coming, but the question we really need to ask is the one that Farmer Spence Terry Spence just asked, and that is, why do we do this? Why, when in 1915 there was many hogs, for example, in the inventory in the United States as there are today? Why do we do this differently? Why do we put them in buildings? And why do we put them in buildings where we have to give them antibiotics and where the poop that these animals produce here in eastern North Carolina? According to Dr. Mark Sopsey, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, a hog species is 10 times what a human's is. Now we're excluding the urine and everything, just the poop, 10 times. East of I-95 in the coastal plain of North Carolina, the most environmentally sensitive area we have in the state, the 10 million hogs are producing as much fecal waste each day as the people in North Carolina, California, New York, Texas, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, and North Dakota. And the method for getting rid of it is a lagoon and a spray field. It can't work. It never will work. We've got the pictures, the photographs that show you you're going to get that. So what do we do? In North Carolina, it's over. I'm telling you, for this industry in North Carolina, the use of lagoons and spray fields is over in 2007. The legislature in North Carolina this year is considering a permanent ban, which I believe will pass. We're not going to fall into this nonsense that the industry is putting forth. They're going to capture methane gas to keep these lagoons. It's not going to happen, not unless all the other standards are met. And the final thing is, in this legislation, we're hoping to get some reimbursement for the people who have suffered with their wells contaminated and all these other things. And finally, what we're seeking in North Carolina this year is a date certain after which there will be no lagoons and spray fields on the ground in North Carolina, and benchmarks along the way to be established for the phase out, with some help for the contract growers. But do these big integrators need our money to make this switch? Well, first of all, they compare this technology that they're going to replace lagoons with against lagoons. That's an outhouse system. Well, nothing will ever be as cheap as an outhouse system. When you put people in a city, you got to put in a wastewater treatment plant. Whether it's pig poop or human poop, it's the same. The technology to treat that was invented a long time ago. So the bottom line is, it's just more expensive. So here's the choice the industry has. You either spend the money to protect these communities and to protect our waters, or give it back to the family farmer. Because the family farmers of America can raise these animals without any problem and feed the marketplace. Nobody's ever stood in line in America to buy a pork chop. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Grant? Gary Grant?
Right here. Good evening. I'm representing the concerned citizens of Tillery, North Carolina, a New Deal resettlement community. I'm also speaking on behalf of Black Farmers and Agriculturalists Association and the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network. Wear many hats here, but it all boils down to simple fact that studies have shown that these facilities in North Carolina have been located in eastern North Carolina, where primarily African Americans live. I ask you to take a look around the room and see how many African Americans you see here, and please, by all means, pay attention to how many African American farmers come before you this evening. Our own government, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, while putting black farmers out of business, created the Purdue chicken industry, which has crippled black women all across the eastern North Carolina. And then we have followed up with continued being put out of business, and we have industrialized agricultural hog farms coming into our areas. Injustice because they are located in black communities, because land is cheaper there. For some reason, this country still devalues a certain segment of its population. People who have been denied access to education, access to voting, and now are threatened when they raise questions about their wells being polluted or the surface water being polluted, and even the air that they breathe, and the children having to go to school on a daily basis and can't go outside because when they go outside what they smell is hog poop. And we need to, sometimes we need to, forgive me for this, but we just need to say what we are smelling. We are smelling, it's what we are smelling. It is not poop, it is that's being washed out into these open pits. And in my county, I have to pay $5,000 to put in a sewage system for my own 2-bedroom home, while 5,000, 10,000 hogs can come next door and dump 4 pounds a day per hog into an open cesspool that fouls the air, contaminates the groundwater, and makes me sick and makes my children sick. These same counties that Mr. Dove just spoke about are also some of the poorest counties in North Carolina, which this also causes excessive strain on local health departments and local hospitals because people don't have health insurance. We also have an industry that's not providing adequate health insurance or even protection for the workers inside of the plant. We have a video here that's called The Rest of the Story, Corporate Hog Farming in North Carolina. And hopefully some of the people here will be here before tonight is over. But I do ask and request that each of you take a look at this. It's only 14 minutes long. And to hear the testimonies of people who live with this on a day-to-day basis, where you can't raise your windows because of the odor, that you have to time the time that you are going outside because of the odor, that you want to run from your automobile into your house because of the odor, that you sit in church and find something stinking, and lo and behold, you realize it's you because you didn't get in your car fast enough from your house. There is no reason for an industry to continue to dump this kind of waste on citizens in North Carolina, to dump this kind of waste on the land, and to pollute the water that we all have to have in order to live. Thank you very much.
Thank you. President Corsini.
Good afternoon. My name is Kristen Corsini, and I'm here today representing Environmental Defense, a national advocacy group with 500,000 members across the country. North Carolina lawmakers have introduced a handful of bills this year that will jumpstart the process of replacing open-air waste lagoons with cleaner waste management systems and prevent any more lagoons from ever being built again in the state. One bill in particular, House Bill 1115, also includes provisions to ensure that existing lagoons are not abandoned and to clean up contaminated drinking water wells. Our goal is to prove that cleaner waste management systems are available and affordable. Our efforts here should prompt EPA and other states to take action to phase out lagoon and sprayfield systems and to replace them with cleaner systems that protect air quality, water quality, human health, and rural communities. As anyone in eastern North Carolina can tell you, and I think you'll probably hear from quite a few people today, one of the most critical environmental issues in our state is the pollution generated by the state's 10 million hogs. The open-air lagoon and sprayfield systems are inadequate to prevent releases of air and water pollution, odor, disease-carrying pathogens, and greenhouse gases. The public health impacts of these operations are well documented. And I won't go into all of the different impacts, but I've got additional material that I'd be happy to provide. A decade ago, the North Carolina General Assembly temporarily banned construction of new lagoons in order to allow development of cleaner waste management alternatives. This moratorium expires in September. Today, that research is complete and cleaner alternatives have been identified. The next step is getting them onto the farms. North Carolina lawmakers are pushing to replace the moratorium with strong environmental performance standards that will permanently prevent new lagoons from being built in North Carolina. Several recently introduced bills will also create short-term incentives programs to help make cleaner systems affordable. This is because lawmakers understand that the first wave of farmers who use these technologies may need financial and technical assistance to install and operate them. In return, these pioneer farmers will work to make clean technologies more affordable by developing markets for waste byproducts such as energy and compost. Once these systems are more affordable, other farmers will be able to put them on the ground without financial help. I should note that there's a proposal that would promote technologies that convert hog waste to energy in particular by allowing utilities to pay farmers a fair price for the energy they produce on the farm. We support this idea, but it's imperative that such waste-to-energy technologies not only produce energy, but also meet strict environmental performance standards for water quality, air quality, odor, and public health. This is an important year for the economic future of Eastern North Carolina, because what our General Assembly does this year will lay the foundation for the future health of our rural communities, for the air and water quality in Eastern North Carolina, and for the future viability of the hog industry. The hog industry can remain a strong partner in the rural economy for many years and can generate added economic value if the right policies, programs, and incentives are put in place today. And finally, just a quick word about partnerships here. We are on the verge of making real progress on this issue in North Carolina only because environmental and community groups are working together with hog farmers to develop policies and programs that clean up the environment in rural communities without putting farmers out of business. Thank you for your work on this critical issue.
Thank you. Deborah Johnson.
Obviously, I'm not Deborah Johnson, but I am speaking on behalf of Deborah. I am Tommy Stevens, Director of Environmental Services with the North Carolina Pork Council. North Carolina Pork Council is a trade organization that represents pork production in the state. Some of my remarks tonight are going to be, I'm going to refer to a report by the North Carolina Division of Water Quality entitled North Carolina Water Quality Assessment and Impaired Waters List. While looking at water quality in North Carolina, it is also important to look at the entire state and the variety of activities that impact water quality. North Carolina covers over 48,710 square miles and has some very unique geographic features, from the mountains in the western part of the state to the flatlands and the coastal plains that are east of Interstate 95. The state is comprised of 17 river basins, which make up a total of approximately 40,000 miles of stream. With the diversity of activities in the state ranging from farming to industry to development, there are many factors that affect water quality. The Environmental Protection Agency requires the states to submit a water quality assessment document and list impaired waters every 2 years. In addition, they also require the state to implement plans for making improvements and bringing those waters back in compliance with water quality standards. The list of impaired waters is given by basin, and it identifies the reasons for impairment. Also given is the number of stream miles of the impaired water in each of the 17 basins, broken down into 9 different categories. I am going to talk about very briefly about those 9 categories, and I'm also going to give the miles of stream that the report indicates that are impaired. First category is source unknown. There's 1,086 miles of impaired stream in that category. The second is runoff from urban and built-up areas, 931 miles. The third is agricultural row crop production, 925 miles. Permitted wastewater discharge systems, 853 miles. Atmospheric deposition, 245 miles. Animal management on pasture, these are animals that are raised and grown on pasture, 238 miles. Land application from permitted facilities. Now this is a category that includes permitted facilities for confined animal operations and additionally all other permitted non-discharge facilities. 150 miles. Construction and land disturbance, 123 miles, and mining, 36 miles. Of the 4,587 miles of impaired waters listed, the category in which confined animal operations are included represents 3% of the total miles of impaired streams. The largest single category outside the unknown sources is that of runoff from urban and built-up areas, and that comprises 20% of the impaired streams. I do have a copy of that draft report. If you would like it, I would be glad to leave it with you. Thank you.
And we would appreciate it if you would. Isaac Singletary.
I'm Isaac Singletary, owner of Lee Branch Farm. I am a farmer. This is what I do for a living. The farm that I own has been in my family's ownership since before the Civil War. My primary source of income for the last 40 years has been swine production. For 25 years I was an independent producer before 1944. I switched over to contract Murphy Brown in '94, and this decision was probably one of the best decisions I ever made. I feel like that's the reason I still own my farm. My business relations with Murphy Brown has been good. As a hog farmer, I accept the responsibility to care for my animals. If you look at my hands, you can see that I don't sit in the office, and I'm not paid to be here today by that matter of fact. I came because I felt that someone on ground zero needed to talk to you, and I appreciate your listening. Taking care of the environment is one of my primary goals. I have 2 confinement operations plus some cattle. The confinement operations, one I don't live beside, the other one I live within 500 feet of. So I know what the ramifications of living by a confined pig operation is. I do it every day. I've been doing it for however many, 38 years. So my neighbors and I get along just fine. We don't have problems, never have. My primary goals are to protect the environment for my children and future generations. I hope that they can carry on. Someone has to do this part of the farming and protect our environment so that we can continue. I appreciate your listening to me, appreciate you coming to North Carolina. And I feel like that someone needs to tell you what I have just said. I don't want to waste your time, so thank you very much.
And we thank you. Roger Oxendine. Roger, are you here? Vivian Levin.
My name is Vivian Levin. I'm a research associate with the Animal Welfare Institute. AWI is a national nonprofit organization created in 1951 to reduce the sum total of pain, fear, and suffering inflicted on animals by humans. In addition to my comments today, I'm submitting for your review and consideration some documents that we believe are relevant to your deliberations. In 1989, AWI obtained the first USDA-approved label for pork from family farms, raised outdoors in deep-bedded pens and without the routine use of antibiotics to promote growth or control disease. Today we have a relationship with the Nyman Ranch Pork Company, which requires its farmers to follow AWI's pig husbandry protocol. We approve approximately 500 farms through Nyman Ranch and have expanded our program to include other farm animal species as well. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today about the animal welfare issues associated with farmed animal production. Concentrated animal feeding operations generate many externalities that fall on people, communities, and the natural environment. Many of the problems associated with the industrialized animal production have their roots in production systems designed with human convenience and extractive profits in mind. Many of the solutions to those problems will be found by adopting technologies and production systems that work with the natural, biological, and behavioral characteristics of farmed animals rather than against them, and that are in harmony with both the animals and the natural environment. But there are moral issues as well as concern for our own quality of life to consider. We should not forget that the externalities of intensive animal production fall first and most heavily on the animals themselves. We believe the Commission must consider whether or not the industrialization of agriculture is desirable at all, and whether merely mitigating the negative impacts of industrialized animal production is administering a Band-Aid where more fundamental reforms are required. The costs of the failure to farm in ways that respect the welfare of farmed animals extend beyond the boundary of the farm. Everyone ultimately bears the cost of the reduced effectiveness of antibiotics. Taxpayers and natural resource users bear the costs of soil and water pollution by liquid manure spills. Future generations will bear the cost of global warming and depleted resources. Therefore, it is consistent with human self-interest to consider the welfare of farmed animals and farm in ways that are respectable of their natures. Farmed animals are individuals and can experience pain, fear, agony, distress, physiological deterioration, aversion, learned helplessness, and other effects of mental and physical abuse or neglect. But farmed animals can also experience curiosity, satisfaction, confidence, pleasure, comfort, and friendship. They can exhibit intelligence and resourcefulness with respect to their environments, engage in life, and experience well-being. Therefore, we believe that in your deliberations it is important for you to consider not only putting an end to practices that cause animals fear, pain, and ill health, but to also keep in mind the capacity of farmed animals to thrive under caring management in enriched environments designed around the ability to experience a high quality of life. The best production environments both correct negative conditions and provide positive ones. We urge you to incorporate in your recommendations a strong animal welfare platform that provides for these welfare needs of farmed animals.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lawrence Baldwin.
Larry Baldwin, Lower Neuse River Keeper with the Neuse River Foundation. I work on the Neuse River, and the Neuse River is in fact listed as nutrient sensitive. My focus, being from Eastern North Carolina, will be on the issue of hog waste and the detrimental effects on water quality, air quality, and the associated human health factors. The issue of hog waste in Eastern North Carolina is certainly not a new one. Efforts to eliminate the impacts that hog waste has on the environment have been going on for well over 15 years. Studies have been done. Documentation of the effects of hog waste on our rivers and streams is well understood. The negative impacts from these hog factories to air quality continues to be documented, and now the effects on human health and communities in the vicinity of lagoons and spray fields is getting the attention it deserves. The effect on human health in the form of increased incidences of asthma and other respiratory problems should be enough to spur the state and the swine industry to take responsibility for the damage they have done and work to eliminate the problem. But instead, their efforts have focused on trying to disprove any negative impact that their lagoon and spray field cesspools are having in Eastern North Carolina. In August 2004, the industrial swine producers released a report prepared by Dr. Dwayne Edwards of the University of Kentucky relating to water quality in the Neuse, Tarpamlico, Cape Fear, and White Oak River basins. Let me emphasize that Dr. Edwards is from Kentucky, not North Carolina. In short, his study, which was funded by the swine industry, claimed that data used in his study did not indicate the presence of generally problematic relationships between hog production and the river quality in the basins of interest. The authenticity of this study defies definition and actually defies any common sense. A study produced by a scientist who is paid by the swine industry, supplied data by the swine industry, never visited the study sites, and has never had his report properly peer-reviewed, provides no validity to the study results. It is yet another way in which the people of North Carolina have been and continue to be lied to about the effects the hog factories are having on our environment. On the other side of the coin, a number of internationally renowned North Carolina scientists released the results of a 10-year data collection and analysis program undertaken for the purpose of determining water quality trends in the Neuse River estuary. The outcome of this study proved that any reported or claimed reduction in nutrient loading to the Neuse River was a result of drought conditions. When data was adjusted appropriately for the drought conditions, there was no statistically significant change in nutrient loading, specifically total nitrogen. And in fact, ammonia levels have been...
Farmers that embrace this technology and embrace this way of production saved their family farms. They improved their net income, they utilized seasonal labor year-round, and they also were able to utilize the nutrients from these operations to stop purchasing commercial fertilizers. The return on investments for these farmers was somewhere between 15 and 22%. The family farms survived because of this, hundreds of them. And on top of that, many of the sons and daughters of these family farms were able to come back and actually realize the dream of actually making a living and contributing to the rural areas of southeastern North Carolina. Many of the family farms that I refer to lost their farms, but I can emphatically tell you that many hundreds were saved because of this industry. It has an overwhelming positive impact in this region. Those same family farmers today are utilizing incomes from these operations to start small businesses to diversify into this area, into this economic region. It's been over 20 years now since I've made loans to this industry. I've had 0 foreclosures, 0 defaults, with billions of dollars loaned over that 20 years. This industry also gives back to the communities. Sampson County, the largest hog-producing county in North Carolina, is a perfect model for the buildings, the agri-centers, wellness centers that have been contributed by the leading family farms and by those that are in this business to give back to that communities. It's a win-win-win situation for this industry and for the communities and for the farmers that are involved in this operation. I want you to understand also that I deeply care about the environment. I was born and raised on a farm as well. And it's very important to me that my children, my grandchildren, have a good environment to live in and clean water. The majority of these contract growers live on the farms. You've heard some of them talk today. They care about the water because they drink it. They care about the way these operations smell because they live right next to them and they try to be good neighbors. The surrounding land values, you'll hear stories about depreciating land values. That is untrue. Land values have increased. I have over 6 certified appraisers on my staff, and we can formally show you that land values started to rise with the advent of this industry. As a member of the economic panel for the North Carolina Attorney General that studied lagoons, I have seen personally the millions of dollars that this industry has earnestly put forth to try to find better systems, and they continue to do this. And today I'm more encouraged than ever that I think this industry, combined with environmentalists, combined with the government, and the university system will find a reasonable way to utilize the to produce bioenergy by utilizing some of the effluent that is coming from these farms. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Baron Hall. Dr. And Devin Hall is next, so if you would take my advice, and Devin, be moving a little closer if you happen to be towards the back. Alfula, you're on.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm Dethula Barron Hall. I'm from Duplin County. My organization is the Rural Empowerment Association for Community Help. And our organization was started to address the needs of low-income families in Duplin County to help to improve the quality of their lives. And we have a variety of programs, but one of our main programs right now is the Duplin Environmental Health Awareness Project. Of course, our major concern is confined animal operations, especially right now the hog operations. We're just very concerned about the effects of the operations on the health of people who live in our communities. Our office is about 3 miles from our house, and our house is located on a road that's surrounded by at least 5 hog farms, and there's constant stench and respiratory problems that I experience on almost a daily basis. My sinuses and allergies have become just really, really severe since
Just take a look at this map. That's North Carolina. And I'm going to leave this with you, and I want you to be able to tell me where Duplin County is, because those red dots is hog industries, industrial hog farms. So if you can find Duplin County in this map, let me know, because I live there. Thank you.
Thank you. I would say that I'm usually a little suspicious of anybody that says you're just a country boy. So I don't know if that line works very well for you or not in other locations. Ralph Miller. Ralph? I take it, Ralph, that's you coming up.
Well, I'm coming in instead of Ralph.
Okay, Marie Miller is next, so let's try to be ready. Introduce yourself and proceed.
Bishop W.O. Williams. I'm from Warsaw. Duplin Environment Health Awareness Program, part of that. And we come up just to say here that I'm listening at some of the statements made about the water and the protection of the, some of the environment. Now, I don't know what part has been so protected, because according to the study that I did, it's been over 15 years that this thing have been in motion that was supposed to have been corrected 15 years ago, and now we're in 2007 and it hasn't been corrected yet. So I don't know where all this help they're talking about here is coming from. Now, there's one thing about it, most of us have been out in the country, and so Duplin County, you don't have to be in no particular place. Just ride through Duplin County on certain days. Now they said that the water's going in certain streams, running how many 100 miles it is. But once it gets in the water, it runs throughout the state, not only throughout this state, but throughout into other states. If it's pumped into the ground and get into the water stream, it's got to go somewhere. People said that there's spray fields, the lagoons, they're spraying on the sides, on the roadsides and whatever. But the same thing, once it gets in the air, it goes wherever it wants to go. Now, I have a problem, I don't have any problem with any man being in business. I have no problem with any man making money. That's up to you. But when it comes to the point where my health, my family's health, and my grandchildren's health, there becomes a problem there. Then you got a problem with me. I want to tell you something. I moved here early 90s out of New York, and I brought my wife, my first wife, let me say it that way, sort of protect myself. Okay, out of New York, which I thought I was leaving all the pollution and all the stuff in the city. Got here, and my wife couldn't stay home 3 days hardly before she was back in Duke's hospital. Had to go back, she's coming to Duke, escaped for 2 or 3 weeks, back home for 2 or 3 days. Now there's a problem there somewhere. I just had grandkids that came from Virginia, not from Virginia, Philadelphia. came down here. 2 days after they was here, they got a problem. Now something's wrong. We raised hogs. I was raised up in Duplin County. We helped build part of the farms and stuff that these people are talking about. Family farms, that's fine. Where are the families at now? I see nothing but the major farmers all over breaking out. Sure, the land, the price is going up because most of them can't get nowhere to buy. They can't afford to buy. All the major farmers have got it and gone. Now I see a problem. Somebody need to do something. Somebody need to do something in Duplin County, Maine. Thank you.
Thank you. Bishop, I bet they like your sermons. You keep them short and to the point. Marie Miller, you're on.
I'm not Marie, I'm Renee.
Renee?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes, yes. I live in Duplin County. I live around the hog farm. There's a hog farm right down the street from me. They spray. I get the spray on me. I get the spray on my house windows. I get the spray on my car. I get the spray on my clothes. I live in the waste of the Duplin County. The hog house is right there. And my clothes don't last me for 6 months. After 6 months, I shred just like paper. And I've been living there ever since '97. And you can't go outside because now they're spraying. They were spraying Sunday and it was coming. I had my church clothes on in the spray. It was just that close to the house, it was coming on me. We have yellow flies. I don't know if y'all know what yellow flies are or not, but they little yellow flies, they fly around you like wasps, and you have to fan. You can't go outside and have a cookout. You can't go in the evening and have a cookout. You can't enjoy yourself. You have to keep your windows closed. And I live with this. My water's bad. I buy water to drink, but I can't buy enough water to wash in, so I have to use my well water. And I just want y'all to listen at us today and try to do something. We want y'all to do something. Help us out. Because we are dying. 10 years have shortened my life in the beginning. Thank you.
Elsie, Harry? Elsie? Tom's next. Elsie, Harry?
Yes.
You're on.
My name is Elsie Harry, and thank you for letting me get to share my experience for the last 20, 25 years with you guys. I live on land that's been in my family over 100 years. My grandfather purchased it from his aunt, who was his slave mistress. My mother lived on this land 99 years. She died in 2001 at the age of 99. I had a Down syndrome brother that lived on this land for 60 years. He died on March 24th of last year. I had a sister that lived on this land for 64 years. She died in March of 2003. When it started, a hog farmer came by alongside my mother's house and started spraying with a reel-to-reel type sprayer. And the spray came on us just like rain, and the odor was terrible. So I approached the hog farmer while he was doing this, and he informed me that it was his investment and he was on his land. But the land belongs to my family. The people that were involved in giving our land to him went into the registry of deeds office. They changed out of my grandfather's will, his map, and his deeds. They came in to the physical land, and they took all the land to the south of my mother's house, and they constructed 2 hog houses and a lagoon. And they took that alongside in front of the house, and they turned it out into a spray field, which is 10 feet from my mother's house. And when I complained about them spraying animal waste on us and the smell, because we couldn't open our windows, we had to get on town water, we couldn't hang the clothes out anymore. They came over with guns onto my mother's property directly in front of her doorstep, her mother's front doorstep, to intimidate me. They came over twice with guns. The hog farmer's son came into my mother's house. He opened 2 doors, a storm door and a screen door. He came into my mother's house and he grabbed onto her chair. She was 98 at this time. And he just shook her around and he told her that he could do anything to me that he wanted to and get away with it. And when I went to the legal system with this, just as he said, he walked out of it, he had done nothing. Every agency that I went to for help, because we can't do anything that we want to do. My mother couldn't sit up in the air conditioner all day because she was elderly and she had arthritis. So did my Down syndrome brother. He had gout. But every freedom that we have, they've taken it away from us. When I'm traveling on the street, the hog farmer's son would pull over into my lane and I would have to come to a complete stop to see what he was going to do so I could continue on my way. They've done everything they can to make me not speak out about the injustices that we are enduring. A lawyer from Wallace area sent me an intimidating letter telling me that I should continue to call water quality, that I could be arrested or made to pay the hog farmer back money for monies that he's losing. Then this man is making a living off of my family's property. Every time I've tried to communicate with someone to help us, to let us have what is our God-given right, clean air, clean water, and the freedom to just walk out of our door anytime we want to, with not being bombarded with animal waste, and the odor, and all the insects that it has created. We have a growth on the field now that was planted by the pork industry to protect us. It's not protecting us. They dug a V-dish, but we can't even utilize the land that we're living on. And currently, they're in my neighborhood building. The same industry that came in and destroyed the very fabric of our lives and communities is now developing the area. And I thank you for allowing me to share this with you.
Tom, you kinda? Tom?
My name is Tom Bukina. I'm a professor of agriculture and resource economics at North Carolina State University. The purpose of me being here is to share with the Commission some of the results of my own research as well as compiled research about the relationship between contracting and livestock waste pollution. The evidence about the potential linkages between contracting and animal waste management problems fit into several categories. The first one is the scale or size. While the impact of contracting on productivity is sizable, contracting does not appear to have large-scale effects. This result suggests that the increased productivity of contract operators is not a major force driving the increase in the scale of production of hog farms. On the other hand, the production technology, which displays increasing returns to scale regardless of the ownership structure, does serve as a motive for increasing the size of both independent and contract operations. Also, large is not necessarily bad, again, because of the significant economies of scale this time in waste management. Intensive livestock production units could in fact be environmentally friendly and that's small family farms because they can make technologically advanced waste management systems economically feasible. The second category is specialization. It is true that contracting creates more specialized animal production operations, thereby breaking the tradition of joint production of crops and livestock that characterizes traditional independent family farms. However, the joint production of crops and livestock may not necessarily be friendlier than specialized production. Farmers tend to apply livestock manure in excess of the amount that would require just substitution of the chemical fertilizer. By applying manure on any given field, they not only receive the nutrient benefits of that application, but also save on the transportation cost relative to applying the same manure on more distant fields. This result shows that the use of manure can be expected to worsen nutrient runoff and leaching from croplands, regardless of whether the livestock producer is a contract operator or an independent farmer. The third category is the concentration. Contract production results in high concentration of livestock production facilities in few geographic areas. However, there is also a tendency for the independent livestock producers to concentrate in certain geographical areas because of significant agglomeration economies. The established network of feed mixers, slaughtering plants, specialized construction companies, extension specialists, veterinarians, and banking services geared around the specific needs of livestock producers could become important factors of industry growth in certain regions. However, concentration is not necessarily bad either. An empirical estimate of the environmental damages caused by proximity of large-scale hog operations suggests that social welfare would be enhanced by directing the industry expansion towards areas where the concentration of animal units is already high, rather than distributing the future animal industry growth more evenly across the entire landscape. And finally, something about the contract form, the type of contracts that integrators and farmers are signing. The amount of nutrients from animal waste deposited in environmental is directly related to the composition of animal feed. The tension in the contract arises from the fact that integrators determine the nutrient content of manure through decision about genetic makeup of animals and their feed rations, but growers own the manure and are legally liable for its removal and disposal. Given the fact that monitoring the nutrient content of feed and manure is costly and imperfect, the net benefits of nutrient application may fail to get incorporated into the payment schedule of a production contract. Therefore, the question of the division of responsibility for providing inputs and the resultant payment schemes used to settle contracts become an important purpose of the optimal contract design. Thank you very much. And I have the publication that sort of elaborates on those issues in more detail. If you're interested, I can do.
Please do so. Nima Muhammad.
Good afternoon. My name is Naima Muhammad, and I'm a community organizer with the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network. And basically, I'm here today because we're concerned in North Carolina with the 10 million hogs that's living in eastern North Carolina. And you've heard the stories already about the impact of these 10 million hogs. And another piece that has not been mentioned is the fact that many of these operations are sitting around our schools, so our children are being affected. We have higher rates of asthma in the schools where these operations are, and the children in these schools are on more medication than any other schools, and there have been studies done that's been able to document that the children attending the schools that's surrounded by these operations are on a higher rate of medications for asthma than in schools where they're not in that situation. And then you've heard the stories from the communities, how people can't sit outside in their yards. They can't just freely go out, you know, in the grass growing season and cut their grass when they get ready. They have to wear masks in order to be outside to cut grass. People can't hang their clothes on the line anymore. So now these things are in poverty-ridden communities. So people are incurring more costs for having to go to the laundromat versus using their clothesline, and for buying water versus their well water, which they had. And that people chose to live in these rural areas because of the lifestyles that they enjoyed, which was the open air and just being able to, you know, step outside when they got ready. The industry came in and changed all of that. And I heard someone say something about land values not being depreciated, but I would challenge that to say, you know, if you live next door to 10,000 hogs and your house before the 10,000 hogs out there might have been worth $250,000, I want to see you try to sell it to somebody now at that price with them 10,000 hogs sitting there and see what happens. And, you know, when we look at eastern North Carolina, we ask ourselves in the Environmental Justice Network, we call it injustice because when you target people based on what they look like to dump on them, then that's an injustice. And people in eastern North Carolina, when you look at the state of North Carolina, eastern North Carolina is predominantly African American, people of color, and poor people. And so what we've noticed about industries coming into North Carolina, when they have ill effects on people, those industries always situate themselves in our county. We have the hogs, we have the poultry, we have landfills, we have all kinds of anything that people want to dump. They just stop right up in eastern North Carolina. So we're fighting many ills in our communities. And, you know, so we're here today because we're hoping that someone will hear us, that you all, I should say, will hear us and do something about the way things are going in eastern North Carolina. And the impact on workers in North Carolina. I'm sure you all probably heard the stories or read the papers and hear about the impact of this industry on the workers in North Carolina, the number of workers that are being injured and the rate that they're being injured at, when people are expected to slaughter 32,000 hogs a day, they're slaughtering 32,000 hogs a day. The rate that they're having, the speed that they're having to work at is so fast, and they have sharp knives, they're cutting each other up. People are having all kinds of carpal tunnel problems and everything. And so, you know, the industry is reaping billions in profit while the people in Eastern North Carolina who are already poor are just getting poorer. And so as an organizer, we plan to join everybody together so that we can make a difference in Eastern North Carolina. Thank you for listening.
Up, Jana. Eugene. Maybe butchering the name so bad I don't know who I'm calling out. She's not here? John Runkle? Thank you.
My name is John Runkle. I'm General Counsel for the Conservation Council of North Carolina. It's a statewide environmental group. In the last decade, we've been trying to get the handle just on 3 of the hog farms, trying to keep them from stop polluting. And I'm not going to go through all the niceties and the legal battles and the political battles and the technical. But we had a federal judge at one point said that those spills and those leaks could have been prevented by prudent operator attention. Now, I'm going to go right to the lessons learned from this decade battle of trying to get just to get our handle on just the 3 things. Currently in North Carolina, there are 2,500 hog operations, almost all of which have lagoons and spray fields, and most of which contaminate the environment and threaten public health, period. 2, the contamination of surface water comes from the leaks, in some cases catastrophic failures directly from the lagoons and the runoff from the saturated spray fields. The lagoons are designed to pollute the environment through the off-gassing of the nitrogen compounds from them. Odors from the hog houses, lagoons, and spray fields consist of hundreds of chemical compounds, several of which are toxic. Most of the hog operations are in eastern North Carolina, and their sandy soils and high water tables allow considerable groundwater contamination. The bottom of lagoons is in the water table. And if that's the way that we get the contamination to go directly from the lagoon into the groundwater. Neither the general permits, the NPDES water quality permits, or individual permits even attempt to control the air and groundwater problems. So thousands of families are impacted, and so are miles of rivers and acres of wetlands. 3, the local communities and nonprofit organizations just do not have the resources to force the state agencies to require the adequate monitoring of the many environmental problems. Lawsuits and experts are costly, and often, as in our case, the polluting hog operations simply sidestep court orders or settlement agreements to find less stringent regulation under a general permit. 4, likewise, without a strong commitment from the state government, even the current rules are not being enforced. Contaminated water is still being sprayed on saturated fields. It flows directly into streams and wetland areas. If you want to see spraying being done, come 2 days before a hurricane, when people are trying to get their free board down low. There is spraying all over eastern North Carolina, and often the ground at that point is saturated. This happens, the lack of government oversight happens because agency staff members are often too new or too few to cover all the farms, and the resources for violation and other enforcement actions are spread just too thin. 5, in North Carolina, the poor, rural, often African-American communities bear a disproportionate impact from the hog industry. The health and community members in these target communities is simply not a priority for state and local health departments. The most susceptible populations, the young, the elderly, and the chronically ill, often cannot escape substantial hog operations and contaminated air and water. 6, the health and environmental problems have solutions, but those are political and economic. The first steps are to ban all lagoons and spray fields and to clean up existing lagoons. There should be no new hog operations without eliminating the current off-site impacts. Access to quality health care and clean drinking water should be a priority across eastern North Carolina. In my comments, I have several websites. The state's Animal Feeding Operations Unit has the programs in North Carolina. There's some real good facts with the Water People Alliance website, Environmental Defense, and Environmental Justice Network where we discuss these issues. So it's something we all need to get into. It's an industry that affects a lot of people in North Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you. Becky Surpass is next.
Thank you. It's an honor to address this commission. My name is Mike Williams. I direct the Animal and Poultry Waste Management Center at North Carolina State University. And I'm the coordinator of waste management programs in the College of Ag and Life Sciences. I'm here this afternoon to make you aware of a resource. You have heard referenced a few times today research that has been completed, technologies that are available. I'm pretty confident that that research that is being referenced is the 5 to 6 year effort of the so-called Smithfield Agreement, in which the Attorney General entered into an agreement in this state, and it provided us with resources of approximately $15 million from Smithfield Foods and $2.3 million from Premium Standard Farms to conduct a research and development project to identify quote-unquote environmentally superior technology. You've also heard a reference that that research has been completed. That largely is correct. Last March, a year ago, 2006, on March 8th, a final report, a Phase 3 report, was delivered to the Environmental Review Commission and to the Attorney General of North Carolina. That report is in front of me this afternoon. I will not leave that report with you. It is one of 3. There are 2 companion reports. In total, it's over 3,000 pages. I would urge this commission, though, to go to our website. I will leave a business card with you which references the website. All of these reports are on this website in their entirety. I urge you to especially pay close attention to this Phase 3 report, especially the first 66 pages. I attempted to summarize all of the findings of this 6-year monumental effort to identify these technologies as much as possible in layman terminology. All of the findings are in an executive summary. It is comprised of 66 pages. I invite you, before you make your final decisions or recommendations, to look at this. I think it is a valuable resource. And in concluding, I will give you the salient points of why I think this is a valuable resource. First, the process. There was involved in this process a 20-plus member advisory panel. That advisory panel was made up of academia, industry, environmental interests, community interests, as well as government representation. Many of the people on that commission are here today, and they're sitting on both sides of the aisle. That was the intent. Secondly, this was an objective process. It was done by objective scientists and objective economists. Thirdly, there was an economic feasibility conducted with all of these technologies. We, in this process, it was painful, but we defined what economic feasibility means. It is in this document. And then fourth, you've heard reference to standards. We also quantified the environmental performance standards that we inherited in this process from the North Carolina General Assembly and were required to do in this process. All of that information is here. Again, I invite you to take a critical look at it before you make your final recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Becky?
Hi, my name is Becky Kirchdas, and I'm the director of the Contract Agriculture Reform Program based here in North Carolina and Pittsboro, North Carolina with RAFI USA, the Rural Advancement Foundation International USA. My comments are going to be focused on the contract agriculture system. 2003, 40% of all U.S. agricultural product was produced with either a production or marketing contract. And the majority of all the agricultural production that we're talking about, the poultry and hog contracts, Those are production contracts, and that's the majority of contracts here in North Carolina. You know, traditionally, farmers produced and then sold animal crops in an open market to the highest bidder among several processing firms. But today's agricultural markets are highly concentrated, with less than a handful of national and multinational firms controlling the majority of the market for many commodities. For example, the top 4 processing firms for beef, pork, and chicken control 55 to 87% of the U.S. market for their commodity. I have a fact sheet that details all of those. At the local level, this means a single processing firm is the only marketing option for a farmer, eliminating price-enhancing competition. Family farmers in contractual relationships are usually required to make large, fixed investments in specialized buildings, additional farm equipment, and land. These investments can be over $1 million, and often require the farmer to mortgage home and farm, becoming fully dependent on the contract to make their debt payments. Though contracts vary in their complexity, they can spell out all management decisions. These management decisions have a significant impact on farm performance. For example, a contract poultry grower's pay is based on the weight of the chickens delivered for processing. However, the final weight depends on the initial health of the chickens and the quality of the feed, which both are provided directly by the company. In addition, the contract can leave the farmer with substantial liabilities, such as disposal of animal waste, and including disposal of dead animals. There's a usual mortality rate, but when you have heat, when you have disease, you can lose a whole house, 2 houses of chickens. That's 52,000 dead chickens that the farmer is left to dispose of. And there's usually no economic means or managerial leeway to reduce the liability safely. And this is a very important point to remember, especially as we're talking about animal diseases, such as regular diseases or avian influenza. Right now, USDA's highly pathogenic avian influenza response plan, which is a draft and is a living document. Right now it says the compensation for everything goes to the owner of the bird, which is the company, and it says nothing for the provisions for the contract grower. So many of these growers are already barely in the black, and this could set them in the red. Despite the investment of risks borne by the farmers, the contract between the grower and processee is usually developed with no grower input. In my written comments that I've submitted, there are a number of different legislative changes that we are working for to make sure that the contract is a fair and balanced relationship between the processor and the farmer. Here's the background comments.
Liz Wagster.
Good afternoon. I'm Liz Wagstrom. I'm a public health veterinarian, and I work for the National Pork Board. Those of you who don't know who the National Pork Board is, we're the checkoff organization for the pork industry. For every pig that's sold, every $100 worth of pig that's sold, 40 cents comes to the pork checkoff to do promotion, research, and education. If you're familiar with the other white meat, that's our promotion arm and other activities. We serve all producers of all sizes. We have programs to deal with people looking at niche production all the way up to large producers and try to serve all of our constituents. I work in the Science and Technology Department, which we deal with food safety, or what we call pork safety, because pork is the best food. Animal science, swine health, environment, animal welfare, and the areas I work most closely with, which are public health and worker safety. Before coming to the Pork Board about 6 years ago, I was a public health veterinarian with the state of Minnesota, with the Minnesota Department of Health. I chose to come to work for the pork industry because I wanted to go to work in an area where I could work with producers, influencing them and helping them achieve their commitment to protect public health. They already had some great ideas, we had some great traditions. I had the honor to come and help them go further. We fund a lot of research, and most of our research is funded, and then we ask our principal investigators to look to get things peer reviewed. We will approve a final report only to say that it met the objectives in the report. We don't have the ability to change a final report. We have a lot of educational programs. You've heard about pork quality assurance from Dr. C. As he mentioned, pork quality assurance was a total quality program that most packing plants that are USDA inspected require producers go through. It's been an education program. We're taking it up the next step to make it an assessment program. I've had the very fortunate the last 2 or 3 years to work with the Pork Production Safety System, which is an occupational safety program, where we've had the largest producers share with us their HR and worker safety, occupational safety people's expertise to develop a program that's available free of charge for any producer of any size who's interested in protecting their family and their employees as they work in the barn. And then what I really want to talk to you about today is the Take Care, Use Antibiotics Responsibly program. You've got some brochures that we have distributed on antibiotic use and on the program. The Take Care, Use Antibiotics Responsibly program was introduced 2 years ago. It's based on using antibiotics responsibly, and that basis is that the responsible use of antibiotics involves evaluating their use to protect animal health, optimize their effectiveness, that means to minimize resistance, and minimize the risk of developing antibiotic resistance to thereby protect public health. Antibiotic use in the pork industry is not size dependent. We know from the last NOMS, or National Animal Health Monitoring System, study that producers that are small report using feed-grade antibiotics at the same percent as producers who are large. What we have done is we've introduced the Take Care program. We got stakeholder input from the CDC, FDA, some of the consumer groups, as well as pharmaceutical companies in the feed industry, to say how can we all take a hold of this issue, make it a pork industry issue, and give producers and their veterinarians guidelines to carefully and responsibly use antibiotics. We've had a really good response. Right now, over 50% of pigs being marketed in the United States are coming from producers who have signed an endorsement form that says, I will protect animal health, animal welfare, and public health by using antibiotics responsibly. That's over 2 years, we've got 52%. The next step is to roll the Take Care Responsible Use Guidelines into Pork Quality Assurance Plus, which will be introduced in June, thus making the responsible use of antibiotics an industry standard for all producers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kathy Rudy? Kathy Rudy? Eugene Nemechek?
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Gene Nemechek. I am a swine veterinarian for a company called GIS Perfect Pig in Newton Grove, North Carolina. I've been a practicing veterinarian for 31 years. I started out practicing in the Midwest in the mid-1970s. And I've seen a lot of changes in this livestock production industry over the years. My current responsibility is to work with the producers that raise pigs for us. They are contract producers. They're also family farmers. These producers are raising pigs, they're looking after them, they hire employees, and it's my responsibility is to work with these producers, train them on proper production techniques, treatment of pigs, recognizing problems in buildings, and solving those problems. The farms today are much larger than they were years ago. We have to do things different today. One is so that the producers can operate a sustainable business. The small farms that once existed when I started practice were not sustainable because they couldn't make enough money. Some of the things that we get involved with as veterinarians, and I'm a member of the American Association of Swine Veterinarians, I have been for 28 years. The program that you just heard about, the Take Care, Use Antibiotic Responsibly, that program is one that we use on a regular basis when we're training our contract producers and their employees. I had a producer tell me the other day after we went through the training program, he said, you know, that makes me feel a whole lot more comfortable, the fact that we go into the grocery store and we buy our products there too. My wife buys groceries just like everyone else. That program has really opened their eyes as far as the responsible use of antibiotics. But in addition to that, you also were made aware of this Pork Quality Assurance program. I wish I had a book to give each one of you. They're printing right now. But this is the new program. This is a great training book that we use to train our producers, new employees. And part of the things that we talk about are the relationship that they need to establish with a veterinarian in order to use these antibiotics and the prescription products. We talk about IDing treated animals, monitoring those treated animals, keeping the records, which they have to do for 2 years, the storage of antibiotics, how to use medicated feeds and when to use them. We also are now, as this program develops, it will be getting more into animal care and animal well-being. A couple things that I'd like to bring out. We've heard a couple things here about we'd like to go back to the old ways. Today, which is much different in the past, when I first started practice, almost all pigs were treated with insecticides for parasites, internal and external. Today, we use no treatments because our modern facilities, we've been able to eliminate them and get rid of them. The other thing, the chemicals and hormones that everyone says that we put in the feeds. I'm sorry, but that's just not true. Our feeds are made at FDA-inspected feed mills, and they go by the compendium and can add nothing more than what's on the label. There are no chemicals, there are no hormones. We do use antibiotics when we have to, but only when we have to. Thank you.
Yes, Gregory?
I'm here to tell you that many of the activist groups, Humane Society of the U.S., PETA, Compassion Over Killing, Sierra Club, Waterkeepers Alliance, etc., are driving that agenda with their big bucks and their PR firms and PR machines. Many of those organizations, their employees and their members won't even eat our products no matter how many hoops they make us jump through. I'll tell you there are 6 states currently in the United States right now that have anti-cage, egg cage legislation in them right now. New Hampshire, Vermont, Washington, California, Arizona, Connecticut, Colorado. Colorado is coming. Why? Why are there 6 states with anti-cage legislation? Again, the activist groups are driving that. In Connecticut alone, I went and spoke in front of the Senate on environment, in front of the state legislation. Shortly after me, the activist groups from HSUS spoke, and the activist groups made it such a rosy picture that it was no big deal to switch from cage production to cage-free production. It is a big deal. In the state of Connecticut, they only have 4 million egg-laying chickens in the state of Connecticut. 4 million. It's not very much. In that state alone, to switch from cage operations to cage-free operations is anywhere from $88 to $100 million to do that. In the U.S., that number is $7 billion and probably more. Who's going to pay for that $7 billion? The consumers will eventually pay for that money. They will eventually pay for that production. The cost of food is going to go up, or the eggs are going to be produced in Brazil or Mexico. You've heard me say that before. When they are produced in Brazil and Mexico, we all have no control over how they're produced, whether it's animal welfare, how environmentally friendly or not friendly they are being, and so we lose a lot of that control. Consumers will pay for that product one way or another through higher food prices and or higher chances of foodborne illnesses with absolutely no control over animal welfare or environmental control. For what? All of this will cause more rapid consolidation, producers going out of business, giving up, and the bigger companies just get bigger because the smaller farmers can't handle it and won't want to handle it or deal with all the bureaucracy and the regulations and all of that. Younger generations won't want to get into the business. Why would they? This is a business. This isn't a business model that would be appetite or pleasing to them and want to get into it. HSUS and Compassion Over Killing want people to be vegetarians. HSUS has adopted a policy of the 3 R's: reduce the consumption of meat and other animal-based foods, refine from the diet, and replace meat and other animal-based foods in the diet with plant-based foods. The egg industry has developed a science-based program. We are producing eggs based on a science-based program, not on intimidation, and we are providing consumers with choices. So how do we feed 400 million people 20, 30, 40 years from now? We do it based on science-based production practices, not on economics and not on emotion. Economics, you're hearing, emotion, you're hearing. We need to base all of our decisions, production practice decisions, whether it's environment or animal welfare or what, on science-based. The egg industry has done just that on animal welfare. We have over 85% of the industry that's on this science-based program, and I just wish someone would help us start telling that story to the consumers. Thank you.
Bob Pike.
Good afternoon. I'm Bob Pike. I'm
general manager of Brownsville Foods, located in Nashville, North Carolina. We're a family farm, family-owned CAFO that is extended back to 1834, which our company roots can be traced. We are concentrated in feed milling operations as well as in egg production and processing. We would be considered a regional egg producer. We also are one of the first ISO 14001 certified egg companies. We have done that over the last 4 years, and I have a copy of our environmental policy that I'll give you for your reference. We have done some innovative things like using biodiesel, which directly competes with us as a feed supplier because we pay higher soybean prices because of that. But this is an example of our company's commitment to the family, the Brownsville family's commitment to the environment. We also are one of the largest organic egg producers in the country. We believe in offering alternative production methods to our consumers, and we're willing to pay for those. To give you an example, normal eggs are selling somewhere between 70 cents a dozen to $1. Organic eggs today are selling anywhere from $3 to $4 a dozen. Emissions, we're working on designing new facilities and using our old facilities to put new design features in them to reduce emissions. One of our most pristine creeks is located against one of our complexes, and we monitor that creek quarterly for any kind of pollutants, and we've been very proud to maintain the quality of water because we are a zero discharge facility. We're a proactive company. We're involved with the UEP Environmental Committee, of which I serve as chairman. We're also a board member of the Agriculture and Fair Research Council, known as ARC, that oversees the Air Consent Agreement between the livestock industry and EPA. $2.8 million roughly has been invested by our industry to help establish scientific knowledge of our issue, as well as to find mitigation efforts to solve some of the problems. I'm also a member of the U.S. Agricultural Secretary's Agricultural Air Quality Task Force, which we're working towards solving some of these issues. We have 2 company-owned facilities, one in North Carolina, one in Virginia, and we also contract with 43 family-owned contract farms. We supply eggs from over 400,000 cage-free organic birds, and we have 1,700,000 cage operation that's under the UEP Animal Care Program. We supply eggs for 2.2 million people every day, and we use that, we do that using no antibiotics as well as any other growth hormones. We supply revenue, job opportunities for over 200 employees. We also are very active in trying to increase the organic acreage. We consume organic corn from 7,000 acres of organic land, also 6,000 acres of soybeans that we need to supply our soybean. North Carolina has 1,000 acres of organic egg production today. So one of the things I would ask you to consider is realizes that industry, and our company in particular, realizes that being green and being animal friendly through our care processes is a good thing to do. It's being good stewards of the environment, and our livestock pays dividends. It produces a better way of production for our production and our operation, but also serves us well in the marketplace. I appreciate this opportunity, and I invite you to see our farms anytime. I'd love to have you come out and visit some of the proactive programs.
Thank you. James Floyd. James Floyd. Lynn Harrison.
Good afternoon. I've traveled here from Wisconsin today. We've been hearing a lot about North Carolina, so I thought I'd bring something a different perspective from a different part of the country. Our family has been a hog production farm since 1913. My wife and I own E&L Harrison Enterprises. It's a hog finishing operation in Elk Mound, Wisconsin, which is located in the northwest part of the state. The farm has 650 crop acres, half on which we grow corn and soybeans, and about half of those acres are classified highly erodible. About 340 acres are irrigated, and from 1913 to 1998, the farm was a farrow to finish operation. In 1998, we sold the sows and went to strictly a finishing operation that sells about 10,000 pigs a year. Our family has always looked for ways to lessen our environmental footprint, but in the early days, we called it being good stewards. We established, my grandfather was one of the people, the early adopters in our area, putting contour strips and grass waterways to control the erosion in our fields. Other practices that we used, such as soil testing and using better varieties of alfalfa, so we could leave more of the erodible land and hay longer. As the years went by, we moved from the moldboard plow to the chisel plow. And in 1986, we started no-till. It has been 100% no-till since 1988. We also continue to look to improve the way our farm operates. In the early 1960s, we began to see university studies that showed that moving pigs inside into confinement had some advantages. And in 1966, we started to move our hogs into confinement buildings. We soon learned that our herd health improved and our productivity improved. The pits under the barn made it easier to manage the manure from the pigs and eliminated the runoff that we're having from the hog lots. We used an injection system to apply the manure. This eliminates the runoff from broadcast spreading. In 2002, our farm was selected as one of the 5 original Discovery Farms. This program is linked to the University of Wisconsin, and the program does farm-scale environmental research. For example, a project we have going on our farm now is using GPS-guided tractors to inject manure nutrients. This technology can generate electronic maps that can tell where, when, and the quantity of nutrients applied. So crops are getting the needed nutrients, and we avoid over-application. Why would I want to be a part of the Discovery program? I think we need science-based information so that I can make good decisions on our farms. Our farm has also been selected as the 2001 Environmental Steward for Wisconsin, and in 2002 we were selected the one of 4 environmental stewards by the National Pork Board. The National Pork Board winners keep raising that bar every year. I've been on the selection committee for the last 2 years, and every year the bar is raised a little bit higher. Our producers implementing new practices to do a better job on their farm. I'm also on the National Pork Board Environmental Committee. This committee will spend $385,000 this year to pork producer-derived dollars funding environmental research. I'd like to remind you that change will come, change will look different than we think, and change will come faster than we think. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd Bennett. Todd Bennett. Ben Shelton.
My name is Ben Shelton. I'm a veterinarian. I'm about 2 hours from here in the Piedmont area of North Carolina. Also a dairy producer, CAFO operator. We milk about 1,100 to 1,150 cows. Like this gentleman over here, I live about 300 yards from the barn. I can open the window at night and hear the vacuum pump running and the gates clanging and know cows are being milked. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, it's going on. I really agree with a lot of these comments here, especially the last gentleman. The technology is coming. It's out there. I'm not going to say that mistakes have not been made. I'm not going to say that water has not been polluted. I'm going to say that people's houses and lives have not been changed. But let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's look at the technology. North Carolina State has done the research. They're working on it. At my farm, we tried to use innovative technology with our manure system through a company called Bion Soils that started here in North Carolina to look at different ways to utilize manure. We're now in the process of trying to work with a group that wants to use earthworms, take the manure through a composting process to generate a product that will be more environmentally friendly and more user-friendly than what we have now. I feel like if we approach agriculture with a total, let's go back to where we were 50 or 100 years ago approach, don't try to expand technology but go backwards, I don't think we have anything to offer the next generation. I have a son that wants to come back to the farm. We're at 1,100 cows. I don't think his goal is to go backwards and to not use the technology we've developed at this time. I watch the U.S. Farmers Board a lot of Saturday mornings. It comes on about 5 o'clock in the morning, about the middle of February. It said that the average American consumer had earned enough income at that time to pay for his food for the rest of the year. We eat incredibly cheap here in America. So the fact that we can have cheap fuel and cheap food, certainly our fuel is getting higher, but on a world standard, we're still relatively cheap. That allows us to have income to buy boats and VCRs and cars and go on vacations. So I think when you look at the overall economy, if you expect the economy to flourish, you're going to have to ensure a cheap food source. And we're not going to do that by throwing away the technology that we've already developed. So I would say my main point today is let's continue to work on the technology and let the technology fix the problems that we have today.
Norman Jordan.
I'm Norman Jordan. I'm service president of the North Carolina Dairy Producers Association, and I also am a dairy farmer. I have a dairy farm located about 50 miles southwest of here. Just to give you an overview of the North Carolina dairy industry, back in 1980 there were over 2,000 dairies in North Carolina. By 2006 we're down to approximately 310 dairy farms left. Over 25 years we have lost 85% of the dairy farms in the state of North Carolina. The cow numbers at the end of 2006 were at 48,000 head of milking cows in the state's dairy herd. We're losing about 5% of the dairy herd in North Carolina over the past number of years, and the herd size in North Carolina has increased to the point that we are at 160 head on average for a dairy farm in North Carolina. The total pounds of milk produced within the state of North Carolina is now at 944 million pounds. For the past 20 years, production is declining an average of 5% per year, while demand is increasing as the population has grown over 30% during the last 20 years here in the southeastern U.S. Almost all of the milk produced by North Carolina's dairy farms is marketed through cooperatives or marketing agencies. The dairy farmers themselves are independent businessmen who have sole ownership of the farmland, buildings, equipment, and dairy cattle. They are responsible for their own operating expenses and debts and are risking all that they own against their ability to manage a profitable dairy farm in today's volatile and competitive marketplace. All of North Carolina's dairy farms, regardless of their size, are family businesses, often with multiple families from different generations deriving their livelihood from the dairy, as well as providing employment for others. Since most dairy farms have been in the same family for multiple generations, protection of the environment is an accepted responsibility. North Carolina's environmental regulation apply to dairy operations with 100 head of dairy cattle or more. Since the average size of North Carolina dairy herd is 160 head, most of the state's dairy farms are required to meet the state's animal race regulations to protect water quality. This, of course, includes twice yearly inspections, record keeping, the educational and recertification process, waste analysis, and land application of that waste at economic rates. For most dairies, having adequate land acreage for waste application is not an issue due to the number of acres of pasture or crop land to support the dairy herd. Due to this nation's desire to have an inexpensive food supply, which then provides the public with a higher standard of living, the U.S. farm all milk price, when adjusted for inflation over the last 30 years, has declined from $16 per 100 pounds of milk to $6 per 100 pounds of milk in buying power. This 62% decrease in the value of our milk at the farm due to inflation has been the primary reason that farmers have either chosen to sell out or have expanded their herd size in order to take advantage of the economies of scale. All dairy farmers have had to make changes to become more efficient during increasingly difficult times. Perhaps the best way to do that has been to give the dairy cow the opportunity to maximize her milk production. This means providing for the nutritional, health, and comfort needs of the dairy herd. Since most North Carolina dairy farms are multi-generational, our lives have been intertwined with the dairy herd, and practicing good animal husbandry is an accepted responsibility. Since North Carolina's dairy farms are independently owned, any additional costs caused by unwarranted regulations will be absorbed by the dairyman and not passed on to the consumer or other entity. Dairying provides the income stream needed to keep the farm and land committed to the dairy operations open, undeveloped, and added to North Carolina's rural system. Thank you. Lee Lane.
I'm Lee Lane. I'm a dairy farmer from Blanche, North Carolina. My wife and I are the owner-operators of Stepstone Holsteins. We milk about 155 Holstein cows and 3 stall housing. As you know, the financial margins in the dairy industry are very tight. It's important that cows produce large volumes of high-quality milk to maintain our business. To produce profitably, cows must be healthy and comfortable. 3 stalls are well bedded twice a week. We rake them daily. We keep them clean. It provides a smooth, soft bed for the cows. Also, we scrape the alleys twice a day to help keep them clean. The cows are fed twice daily. They're fed a nutritionally balanced diet made with homegrown forages and purchased grain. The forages are tested for nutrients to maintain a balanced diet. We also, in trying to maintain the health of the cows, we have a vaccination program designed in consultation with our veterinarian. Only when necessary are antibiotics used. Antibiotics are expensive and only valuable when used properly. And the withdrawal times in the milk and meat are observed so that there's no antibiotics that enter the food chain. As you may know, in North Carolina in the summertime it gets very hot and humid. Our 3-stall barn is naturally ventilated, and beyond that we have 36 fans with sprinklers over the feed alley that are all on thermostats that come on automatically when the temperature rises. My workers are trained to handle the cows quietly and calmly at all times, and they know that it's very important that that's done in order to maintain the health and comfort of the cows. I can't overemphasize that the best interest of dairy farmers is to maintain cows under the best conditions using proper management practices to keep healthy, comfortable, and profitable cows. Thank you.
Thank you. Harry Gardner.
Difficult to distill my feelings on this within 4 minutes on the content. I'm a turkey veterinarian. I work for a family-held company that's been
producing animals in North Carolina since the 1940s. Turkeys and hogs. We have contracts with over 300 farmers. A number of them have been in contract with us for something in excess of 30 years. Our contracts evidently seem to work out very well for them. I started out in the turkey business with my family in Iowa on range, raising birds the old-fashioned way in the 1960s. We moved into confinement as the industry progressed. I watched the mortality rates drop. I watched the incidence of enteric disease decline. I watched the incidence of respiratory disease decline. I watched the weights of the average turkey at 18 weeks of age change from 18 pounds to 40 pounds. I watched the feed required to produce that bird in feed efficiency terms decline from something like 3.5 pounds of feed per pound of bird to its current 2.75. I am a firm believer that you have to take care of your animals to achieve that kind of production efficiency, that you cannot do it by abusing them. I am also a firm believer that there are very severe environmental costs involved in decreasing the efficiency of an agricultural production system to revert to the models of 30 and 40 years ago. It takes substantially more product to produce the same quantity of meat. More land is necessary to produce the grain to support that poor feed conversion. That grain is an absolute waste. Nothing is derived from it. If you produce the same amount of animals with a poor feed conversion, you then have more manure. The people that I work for live in eastern North Carolina. Where most of them live is very near their farm or on their farm. We have made some progress in finding alternative litter uses for poultry litter. All the litter from our brooding facilities is being used in a power plant down in New Bern to produce electricity. We've had active planning underway to try and do the same thing with finishing house litter for about the last 7 to 8 years. A major roadblock has been inability to reach an agreement with the power companies on interruption of service and who's paying how much for the electricity. Hopefully that'll be resolved in the General Assembly in North Carolina sometime this year. We'll go on an agreement somewhat similar to one they have in Minnesota where they have been able to pursue litter burning for electricity. In fact, I could go on, but I think I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Edith Romaine.
Obviously, I'm not Edith. My name is Don Webb. I represent Edith. Things I want to say to you, I had to buy these reading glasses. I am a country boy, and I'm so damn proud of it, I don't know what to do. I'm telling you, there's one for country folks. This country wouldn't have got this big before the factories took over and run us off our farms and made hard things for us. And I want to tell you something. The hard money couldn't buy me. They tried to buy me to get me to talk and say certain words for them. A couple of years back, you know what I told them to do with the money? I said, shut it. I don't need filthy money. I believe in honor, decency, and respect. And I'm proud of that too. I got that from my mom that worked in the sheriff factory. My daddy farmed in one of the rockers. We was poor folks. I ain't poor folks. But the day I could get the poor people, I hope the Lord takes everything I've got. But poor people are not represented. Poor black and white people are not represented fairly. You know I'm telling the truth. How many of you would want your mother to live within 2,500 feet of a factory hog farm owned by a rich guy that lived on Park Avenue? I know the answer to that. They told me don't never ask the question. Let you know the answer. I know the answer to that. Not a single one of you want your family to smell that stinking stench that some people up here say you can't smell. Why? When I first started in this fight, you know what the hog industry, pork council head man told me, and right in front of many people, the nose is no indication of odor. Boom. That's all he had to indicate odor. And we've been through that with the hog industry for years. I was the first one in North Carolina to stand up to him. And you know what? I'm proud of that. Now let me tell you another thing you didn't know. I was a former big hog. And you know why I got out? I was making plenty of money. I bought my first Lincoln Continental with hog money. It smelled good. And I thought that money still smelled good until a black gentleman and a white gentleman came in and said, Mr. Webb, can't you help us? Said, you're stinking our homes. You're just making life miserable. I thought about it for a while, and then I thought about my old mama and my old daddy. I sold my hog operation. I got out of it before I take money to hurt other people. I don't want it. I don't want money to make me fat cat. This whole deal is about M-O-N-E-Y. Do you think those hog people are that worried about feeding somebody? They're worried about buying them one. That's somebody just talking about a boat. Well, these poor folks I represent, and I represent a lot of folks, they can't buy a boat. I know a lot of poor African-American friends of mine. They go from day to day to see if they can get a meal. And if it weren't for the government free commodities, or not commodities, but the money they get, they might not be able to make it. But who represents them? Nobody really. Everybody talks about it. Talk's cheap. I mean, just 1 minute. Lord, I ain't even got halfway through. Let me say some things quick. I want to say this right plain. I want you to listen to me. A good American would never stink up another American's home with feces and urine. And I say the most important thing now, a good Christian would never stink up another human being's home with feces and urine and then lie about it. Now, when justice can be bought, there can be no justice. I've been paid no money for over 17 years in this fight. I've spent my own money on gas. I've done everything. The only thing I've ever had done is somebody buy me a plane ticket. I couldn't afford to buy all that much stuff. But folks, I'm here to tell you, you know the truth already. Decency and honor. And I will close out with this. The Constitution of the United States says these people, these poor people that have to smell the snitch have the right of domestic tranquility. Domestic tranquility. And they don't have it. I close with this, ladies and gentlemen. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. God bless you.
My name is Kelly Zering. I'm an ag economist and I work at NC State University. I've worked there for 23 years as a researcher and extension specialist teaching about the pork industry in North Carolina. I want to speak to you briefly about the economic importance of the pork industry and the pig industry in North Carolina. As somebody else had mentioned, we have an inventory of 9.5 or 10 million pigs most years. And market somewhere between 18 and 19 million pigs. Those pigs are worth somewhere around $2 billion each year, which represents 1/4 of the cash receipts from farming in North Carolina. If you're to add the poultry and other livestock industries, about 2/3 of North Carolina's cash receipts from farming are generated that way. The impacts also include the jobs that are created. About 8,300 full-time equivalent jobs exist in raising hogs in North Carolina. About another 10,900 exist in processing and packing those hogs into pork. And those jobs in turn create jobs for other people selling groceries, restaurants, all the support industries that we require, bringing a total of 46,500 jobs in North Carolina. Full-time equivalent jobs. Those same jobs generate about $2.2 billion in value-added income. This is not gross receipts, but actual income that people have from the state. And it tends to be in the poorest and least developed counties in the state, the rural counties. About $1 billion was invested in facilities, buildings, equipment in order to support the hog industry, and that greatly raised the property tax base and revenues of those counties as well. So just to summarize, the pig industry, the pork industry, and the other livestock industries are very critical to rural counties in North Carolina, and their effects are widespread throughout the community, not just for those that produce the livestock. And that industry is very sensitive to regulation. They compete in national and global markets, and careless regulation could easily destroy that industry and that livelihood for the rural counties in North Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you. Jane Rogers. Jane Rogers. Dale North, you're next. I take it Jane Rogers is not here. I saw a woman stand up, but you're not Jane, right? You're not, of course. Dale North.
My name is Dale Norton. I live and farm in southern Michigan, about halfway between Chicago and Detroit. I live 8 miles from a town of about 2,500 people. I am part of a 4-family, multi-generational farm that some would label an industrial farm. I dislike that term, and I'd like to suggest to you that a fairly large business is needed to earn a good living in agriculture. Kendale Farm, as our farm is known, was established in 1880 by my great-grandfather. It was operated in the ensuing years by my grandfather and my father. They were living through the Depression, and my father's participation in World War II as a B-17 pilot had a distinct impact on how business was done. Although I worked and enjoyed growing up on the farm, I didn't become formally involved until 1973 when I graduated from college. Our partnership was formed that year between my father, my brother, and I. For the next 30 years, we worked and grew together. In 2003, at 83, my father retired and sold his interest in the partnership to my son Michael and my nephew Joshua. Josh's 2 sons, Tanner and Drew, have the potential to be the 6th generations of Nortons to farm Kendale Farm. I would like to read to you the mission statement that my brother and I wrote about 15 years ago. I think it exemplifies how we strive to operate. Kendale Farm will be an environmentally and socially responsible member of the community, acting with honesty and integrity. We will produce superior quality products at a profit. We will be early adopters of appropriate technology. We will produce sufficient volume to achieve efficiency and a standard of living comparable to other career options, and provide an opportunity for the next generation's entry if they desire. We value people and relationships. Consequently, we will accept employees as important members of the organization. We will seek the input of all family members on important decisions and will allow time for family vacations. We will encourage spiritual growth, community leadership, and business education activities. We currently farm around 2,600 acres. We practice no-till on nearly all of our conventional corn and soybean acres because of its environmental and economic benefits. Because we are fortunate to have irrigation and processing close by, we are able to grow 300 acres of canning tomatoes, 300 acres of green beans, and 400 acres of seed corn. We have 60 beef cows. Our hog operation consists of 1,500 sows with over 31,000 pigs produced annually. We do have gestation stalls. We have 3 contract finished barns in Indiana that are owned and run by Amish. We employ 5 people full-time, several part-time, and hire additional seasonal labor for the vegetables. We are voluntary participants in the Michigan Agriculture Environmental Assurance Program. This program requires that a CNMP be written and followed, and that an on-farm verification be done to make certain that we are being environmentally correct. Our entire family is active in numerous church and community organizations. I served for 9 years as chair of the Farm Service Agency County Committee. In 2005, I was appointed by Governor Granholm to the Michigan Ag Commission. We, like your commission, hear public comment about our policies. I'm also chair of the Animal Welfare Committee of the National Pork Board. I was quite involved with the development of the Swine Welfare Insurance Program and have had the assessment from this program done on our farm. Even though I know we do a very good job from a stockmanship standpoint, it was still very beneficial to have an educator look over our shoulder. We are very biosecurity and health conscious. With our veterinarian, we have developed a comprehensive vaccination program for all of our livestock and maintain a high health status. We use antibiotics when necessary in accordance with our veterinarian's directions. I would like to suggest to you that there are many livestock farms operated by families just like ours across the country that have a significant positive impact. It takes a certain threshold of size and considerable efficiency to be able to generate enough income to allow us and our children to continue to farm as a vocation rather than just live in the country and have a rural lifestyle. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Curtis.
I'm Jennifer Curtis. I'm here on behalf of the Center for Environmental Farming Systems, whose mission is to develop food and farming systems that protect the environment, strengthen local communities, and provide economic opportunities in North Carolina and beyond. I manage a project for the center called North Carolina Choices, whose mission is to promote sustainable pork production and develop and facilitate direct market connections between pork producers and consumers. I have three main messages I want to leave with you today. One is, here in North Carolina, the market demand for niche pork exceeds the supply greatly. Second, opportunities for farmers to meet this demand through the development and implementation of alternatives called North Carolina Choices, whose mission is to promote sustainable pork production and develop and facilitate direct market connections between pork producers and consumers. I have three main messages I want to leave with you today. One is, here in North Carolina, the market demand for niche pork exceeds the supply greatly. Second, opportunities for farmers to meet this demand through the development and implementation of alternative production systems is great, and I think this commission could do a lot to help promote that. And there are many challenges to it, however, in terms of infrastructure needed in the state, for example, with meat slaughter and processing facilities to help expand the development of these production systems and markets. On the issue of market demand, we see it at many different levels, at the wholesale, retail, and direct market. Here in North Carolina, Whole Foods Market has recently come in within the last year, the nation's largest natural food grocery chain, to buy directly from farmers and sell directly at their stores here in North Carolina. And Smithfield Food, with the recent purchase of Pure Foods, is interested in purchasing up to 1,500 hogs a week that have been raised outdoors by small family farms. So again, at the wholesale retail level, the market is expanding greatly and changing dramatically. Area restaurants, both gourmet, high-end, as well as barbecue, are really leading the charge here in our metropolitan areas and demanding local pasture-raised meats in particular. Direct markets demand is out of control, and several of our farmers are here to talk today about the incredible demand that they're experiencing at local farmers markets and through community-supported agriculture arrangements. Just to talk about the alternative production systems that are employed here by about 100 different farmers across the state that are raising hogs outdoors. Generally, they are outdoors. Their marketing claim is around pasture raised, which pastures are integrated into the production system, sometimes with woodlands, sometimes integrated with other livestock species, often integrated with crop production, including vegetable and commodity crops. The benefits are multiple. You've heard about them from other speakers. For these production systems, in terms of the animal welfare issues related to a variety of different practices, mainly what consumers are interested in is knowing that the animals have been raised in a way where they're able to engage in their innate behaviors of rooting and wallowing and nesting prior to farrowing, etc. So there are a variety of different animal welfare benefits from these production systems. Public health benefits. None of the farmers that we work with utilize antibiotics prophylactically in animal feed, a major public health benefit. The waste generated from these pigs is typically applied to the land by the animals themselves and incorporated and utilized by subsequent crops. The scale at which these systems can work is small to medium scale. We lose 1,000 farmers a year typically in North Carolina. These kinds of production systems are a way for farmers to get back in and make a profit on a small to medium scale. We need support and infrastructure, however, to expand these markets. One of the major challenges is the small number now of local meat slaughtering facilities. We have one slaughter facility in North Carolina that can take a live pig and turn it into bacon, cured hams, smoked sausages. Only one. This is a shame. We need to really, really invest through policies and other sources of investment in expanding access to local, small-scale meat slaughter and processing facilities. And if I have one more second, I'll also say, I think as we expand this production system, we're going to need to look at developing, and this is something we're doing at NC Choices, best management guidelines for farmers around conservation, soil quality, water protection. We're working closely with NRCS on this. And I'll close. Thank you.
Thank you. Bailey Didden. Eliza is next.
My name is Bailey Didden. I own and operate Triple B Farms, which is about 50 miles north of here. I am what a lot of folks would call a grass farmer. I run all my species, hogs, chickens, turkeys, and all outside. Now, I have been on both sides of the spectrum. For about 20 years, I was in the confinement hog operation. I was constantly giving vaccine to pigs, carrying dead pigs to the incinerator. We just was constantly doing something all the time. About 5 years ago, I decided to get into the organic raising business with strictly grass, and it has been growing so fast. People are knocking at my door. I can demand my price for my product because they know they're healthy, they're raised environmentally safe, they're in their own environment, they like where they are, they are happy, and I love every minute of it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Eliza, please.
From the future hog farmers of North Carolina. I'm a new farmer. I am a farmer with a waiting list. I literally have to give numbers to visitors, kids, nanny groups, homeschool groups, local college classes, grandparents who want to see the old ways of doing things. I have a wait list for interns, employees, and most especially for my products. I cannot supply the demand. I am also on a wait list right here on Foster Street. I tried to get into Durham Farmers Market right down the road here, and I did not get in this year, even with a strong reputation in this area. I have, sorry, I'm nervous, but I'm the last one. I have a small farm outside of Chapel Hill. You can audit my farm by Animal Welfare Institute standards, essentially with your ears. We have contented animals who like their jobs as much, if not more, as the staff, small and mighty. I do things in a different way than a lot of people you've heard from today, but a lot like what Bailey just described. I can't feed many, but more people like me can feed a lot. My customers are largely ex-vegetarians that have sought to eat meat again. They know that people like me produce pork, chicken, and eggs with half the cholesterol, twice the unsaturated fats compared to saturated, and they know exactly where it comes from and where the money stays. I have helped start 50 small family farms raising livestock in the last 4 years, and most, if not all, are still in business because the demand is there and it is growing. Families are bringing adult kids home where grandkids are taught the old ways and get free daycare. It is a sustainable way to live. What I ask of you is help in reestablishing the infrastructure that has been largely snuffed out by the big industry here in North Carolina in the form of local independent processors, value-added plants, as Jennifer described, to produce smoked products, feed mills that can produce non-medicated and affordable feeds for small farmers like myself. The family farm preserves history, a sense of our own heritage and eating quality of the past, a connection to the earth, and a departure from the cheap fast food we've grown to know and have our country associated with. These farmers, like myself, need to be encouraged, supported, and rewarded. We're going to do it anyway because it's pulling things together, history and family. And we give the customer what they want and what they'll pay for. And they do pay our prices. I ask for financial and regulatory support for the processors and value-added facilities, serving independent family farms, raising hogs and other livestock. Thank you very much.
Thank you. After the posted deadline, we had a number of people that did request an opportunity. I'm going to go through the list very fast, and if you're here, we'll give you 3 minutes to share your thoughts. You weren't on the original list, but I think you came in after correctly. Yes. Aaron Sandell, William Williams, Renee Wilson, Violet Branch. Bobby must have told these people not to come. Gordon Humphrey, Geraldine Humphrey, Leonza Glaspie, Martha Perez, Thurman Smith, Al Williamson, Catherine Workman, Tommy Porter. Yes. Tommy, you're on. And given you made the effort and most of the others didn't, I'll let you have 4 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Tommy Porter, and I'm a family farmer. I have a 2,200 sow farrow to wean operation under contract with Premium Standard Farms. I have 4 poultry houses under contract with Tyson Foods. I have approximately 300 head of brood cows, cow-calf operation, which I'm independent with my beef operation. Without these contracts, I would say I probably could not farm today. On this farm, my closest neighbors, on one side is a church, the other side is a daycare. I can assure you that the mothers that drop their children off at this daycare, if there was any problem with the way I apply my animal waste, with the way we raise our animals, there would be an uproar. We have never had a complaint of any type. These are the best neighbors we could possibly have. We do our farming responsibly. The organic waste that is applied from this hog operation and the poultry operation is land applied on our pastures to raise hay and beef. This greatly reduces the amount of commercial fertilizer and chemicals that I have to apply to the land. Also, my family was raised there. My children, myself, play in these same fields, the same streams that run through the farm that this waste is applied. It is not a hazard, it is an asset. The welfare of the animals, the employees that we have on the farm, they've all been trained in the quality assurance programs. They know how to care for the animals. They know how to spot which one needs care. These animals would not produce for us if we did not take the best care we could. We could not take the care we do if we did not raise them in this way. These animals, and I have nothing against the organic way, the natural way of raising animals, but that does not replace the safety of the food in this country and the expense that the housewife in this country does not have to pay for the food, that this is the cheapest and safest food in the world that we enjoy in this country. Again, I thank you for being here and appreciate your time.
Thank you. Candace Whitehead.
Hello, my name is Candace Whitehead. I am a senior at UNC Chapel Hill. I major in environmental science in the School of Public Health. And I'm also from Edgewood County, which is in the eastern part of the state. And I am from a community that has a hog operation there. And really, like, the whole situation is just really interesting. Growing up with that is not fun. The operation has been there since around '96, and there are times I would get off the bus and run to my home because the odor was just so bad. I remember crying on several occasions because I didn't even want to breathe the odor. And it's home. I don't even like going home. I'd rather be at school because at school I can roll down my window when I'm driving. I can go outside and do what I want to do. And I guess one thing that really strikes me is it feels like we're not considered on the same level. We, as in those in the communities with hog operations, or with CAFOs, aren't considered on the same level as other people. In our community, we fought to try to stop it, to try to prevent it, and that didn't happen. But I've also seen lots of examples where communities were able to decide whether or not they wanted one in their community, and it baffles me that certain places are seemingly targeted or paths of least resistance, as Robert Bullock has said, are places where these things are placed. And I understand that people are trying to make their own livelihoods and all that, but at the same time, like it's our community, and it's one livelihood based off of a whole lot of livelihoods, and I thank y'all for listening, and I just really would like y'all to consider how the lives of people around these facilities, how our lives are affected on a daily basis without us even having any say-so in that decision. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple more Whiteheads. Is there a Mamie Whitehead?
Yes, it is. Good evening, and as you've spoken, I'm Mamie Whitehead, and I'm Candace's mother. I'm a registered nurse and concerned citizen in Edgecombe County, too. Imagine working hard to get your first home and waking up every morning with your eyes and nose burning. It's below 20 degrees outside, very cold inside of your home, or 100 degrees outside and even hotter inside, but they're not to turn on your air conditioning or your heater. Of course, you have a full tank of gas. You are in your Sunday best, and in an instant it's ruined. Your new home or car is unbearable to live in or to ride in. Every time you go outside, you hear it inside to take a shower. You are reluctant to invite your family or friends to your home because of embarrassment. Limited or no cookouts or gatherings. People will arrive to say, what's that odor? Your child is surrounded by cows at school and 60 plus cows or more at home, and 6,500 hogs. You are almost face to face with cows as you get off the school bus, in which some are in uncompromising positions, not suitable for children or even adults. You are unable to open your windows, trying to outrun, as Candace has said, the odor getting off the school bus. Some of the residents are still on well water. The only thing separating their homes from the cows is the road. A landfill is brewing within 3 to 4 miles of your home. You are told you are interfering with a farmer's living, and we are sued. The spraying of pumping of the fields in front of our homes 2 to 3 times a week, almost 8 hours a day, with the cows grazing in that area. All of these scenarios are too ill living of our lives due to hogs and cows. This land was given to the people in our community by their grandparents, and which these people are 80 and 90 years old. And these lands they're sentimental to the people. They're sentimental value. Our air and environment are unhealthy to breathe, and we must breathe. It is so harmful to our lives. The farmer who does not live in this community and has the hog operation, and the pastor within our community is located in, this operation is located in the middle it's surrounded by a church, daycare in our homes, and he doesn't even live there. This is unacceptable. My question is, everything is catering and suitable for the convenience of the hogs and cows. When is it our time? The people, the taxpayer citizen. Just because we live in the country does not mean that we don't have the same right as the people that live in the city. I ask, how much talk do we need to realize these things are harmful and unacceptable? We are human beings complaining every day. What more is needed? Thank you.
Thank you. Amy Whitehead. And then Don Williams.
Hi, I am Katie's sister and Macy's daughter. I want you to just put yourself in my place. Waking up to cows sitting right in your back.
And then Don Williams.
Hi, I am Katie's sister and Macy's daughter. I want you to just put yourself in my place. Waking up to cows sitting right in your backyard. You try to get on the bus and they stare at you like, what you doing here when you were out here first? I come to school and I see cows. We can't even have the right recess that we need because cows are out there. They're stinking, they're messing up people's allergies, and how do I know? I have allergies myself and they're acting up. It's just hard to be raised when you're raised by a hog operation. And cows too. They stink, they really do. And it's so hard to get off the bus because the children, you know how teenagers are, they pick. And it's like, what's that smell? What's that smell? And oh, that's so-and-so pigs. It's really hard being raised by a hog operation. Thank you.
Thank you. Don Williams. We're going to close with a bang.
Yes, we are. Hopefully not my whole job on the floor. My name's John Williamson. I am a contract grower. My husband and I own and operate a 2,000 South Fair marine operation in southern Sampson County here in Loveland, North Carolina. I have a day job as well. I'm certified by the state of North Carolina as a technical specialist for animal waste management systems. That means that I assist growers locally for my company with nutrient management planning and conservation planning. Okay? My specific message for you today is of the successful coexistence of swine farming and clean water in North Carolina. Contrary to what you've heard from a lot of people today, there is clean water and hot water in North Carolina. Let me show you a map here. This is the Black River watershed in Sampson County.
This is a map of one county.
Well, actually, there are two counties involved here, Midland County and Sampson County. Concentrate right here on this watershed. This is the Black River watershed. Big Coharie Creek, Little Coharie Creek, along the Great Coharie. Six Runs Creek runs down through the county. At their confluence is the Black River, and that is a snapshot picture at a moment in time that I'm going to talk to you about today. In 1990, the Black River, which starts right here, was ranked by the state of North Carolina as a pristine waterway. And by definition, pristine, you understand what that means. From 1990 to 1994, after that water quality ranking that was given to the Black River by the state of North Carolina, a lot of things were going on in the swine industry in our county. From 1990 to 1994, the swine population in Sampson County doubled. And where were those farms built? Well, since that Black River watershed that I just showed you, is drained by 75% of land in Sampson County. It stands to reason that most of those hog farms are built on that Black River watershed. And that, I believe you saw this picture earlier, maybe not this long. There's the same watershed. All the red dots are slime operations. Mine is right there, right after the confluence of those two creeks. After 1994, after this big boom of the swine industry in Sampson County, North Carolina, it was time to reassess the state of the waterways in the state. They came into the Black River watershed. It was re-ranked, and as you might imagine, the ranking changed. What you may not imagine is that that ranking was upgraded. The Black River was no longer a pristine waterway. It was an outstanding resource water. That is the highest water quality ranking that's assigned to a surface water in North Carolina. So, what I wanted to show you is the data picture here, supported by the handouts that I'm going to give you in just a moment, is clear evidence that the voluntary BMPs and regulated waste management techniques that are employed by the farmers in Sampson County, North Carolina, and the whole state of North Carolina, do protect the water. And not only do they protect, in some instances, they can enhance the water quality of our state. I have one more picture I want to show you. It's one thing to see the Black River drawn as a little line on a map. This is what an outstanding resource water looks like. This picture was taken just a couple of years ago, not far from my farm. My farm property actually backs up this water. That is what a river running through hog country looks like. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. This brings to a close our hearing. Let me just say very quickly, we appreciate everybody's participation. You've been an excellent set of presenters. You've stayed with our plan in terms of timing. You've focused. You've obviously given us a lot of, in some ways, contrasting messages. Some are compatible, and it'll be our job to sort through. But you have helped us. We appreciate you taking time. Thank you very, very much. This hearing is over.